I fell. I fell head over heels in love with my daughter. But it's not happening in the way you probably think. I remember when they first put her in my arms, it was not at all what I expected it to be. But then again, is anything ever what you expect it to be in the world of parenting? I had been quietly anticipating her arrival for 39 weeks. Sure, I was nervous, as any first-time mom will be, but I quelled those fears by posting those annoying baby bump photos all over social media and spending days poring over paint colors until I found just the right shade of sage mint for her room. July 26th arrived. And after quietly laboring at home for a few hours, we headed to the hospital where I would be in intense labor for 16 hours and excruciating pushing for 4 hours. I would have done anything to make the pain end. It wouldn't be until years later that I would recognize I had had what is termed a traumatic birth experience, which would go on to shape the next several years of my life. As a former psychology teacher, and as someone who will read everything and anything I can get my hands on when I'm nervous about something, like having a baby, I was well versed in the oxytocin that would be pumping through my body during labor and at birth. I knew about it. I was ready for it. I could not wait to feel this intense bond with my child that had been growing inside of me for so many months. Oxytocin is nature's cuddle hormone. It's its way of preparing our body to bond with baby. I was waiting for it and waiting and waiting. It never arrived. The nurses placed my baby in my arms, and this cold, vice-like grip of fear came over me, and this tiny, creeping sense of panic. What was I supposed to do now? My first thought, my baby, what's wrong with my baby? My baby's not crying. What's wrong with my baby? You see, up to this point, my entire knowledge of babies and labor and delivery had come from the movies. And in the movies, the baby always popped out crying and wailing and screaming. So that's what I was expecting. However, in those same movies, in those labor and delivery scenes, there is no blood, there is no poop. That baby pops out after 4 pushes, not 4 hours. And that mama's face is perfectly made up the entire time. I should have known it was a lie. As I frantically asked the nurses, what's wrong with my baby? Why isn't my baby crying? I felt my heart start to beat faster and faster. My hands were trembling, and this lump of fear had lodged itself right there in my throat. The nurses reassured me she was fine, a little bit of jaundice, no big deal. But this knot in the pit of my stomach would not go away. And if I'm perfectly honest, it still hasn't gone away. It's always there, ready to rear its ugly head at the slightest sign of distress from my daughter. I became consumed with her well-being, protecting her, shielding her, making sure I didn't drop her. True story, one of my greatest fears was that I would drop my newborn baby. I had nightmares about it. I was suffering from postpartum anxiety, and it would get progressively worse. Eventually, the panic attacks would set in. They were always about my partner or my daughter, that something horrible had happened to them. Eventually, as those panic attacks creeped in and got worse and worse, I was sitting at a stoplight one day, and I was on my way to pick my daughter up from daycare, flipping through the radio stations. I know, who listens to the radio anymore? And an ambulance drives by. Lights flashing, sirens blaring. I knew in an instant with every fiber of my being, down in the pit of my bones, they were going to get my daughter. I could see this vivid image in my mind's eye of her little lifeless body laying on the floor of her school. Her teacher's been over trying to revive her. And the images in my mind just kept getting more and more gruesome. My hands trembled. My heart just felt like it was going to pound right out of my chest. The knot in my stomach kept clenching and clenching and clenching. This bead of cold sweat trickled down the small of my back. A flood of tears filled my eyes, blurring my vision. For the life of me, I could not catch a full breath of air. I was in a state of complete terror. Mind you, if I had waited 15 seconds, I would have seen the ambulance drive right past my daughter's school. She was fine. The panic attacks were kind of my signal. I need help. So I started to pursue therapy, and it did prove helpful. I actually learned a lot of coping mechanisms for those panic attacks in particular. And I am a firm believer to this day that everybody would benefit from a little bit of therapy at some point in their lives, if not a lot of therapy. The truth is, postpartum anxiety served as a catalyst for me. It helped me discover what is one of my greatest passions and what I hope will be my life's work. I am the co-founder of Her Health Collective, a supportive community and resource hub for moms. It is what I affectionately refer to as my second baby. You see, after I had left teaching, I pursued a career in postpartum fitness. And I had the pleasure of working with countless moms. And as we trained together, most of the time working, trying to help them get their body back into some version of what it used to be, which is a whole different can of worms, which I will not open, but I have a lot to say there. But as we got to work together, I got to hear their stories. And it didn't matter if this mom had a home birth with a doula, or had gone to the hospital and received an epidural as soon as she was able. It didn't matter if she had breastfed or bottle fed, had one child or 5, or had a 7-month-old or a 17-year-old. There was this common thread that was woven through each and every one of our stories. And what I heard over and over again, I am exhausted. I am so frustrated and overwhelmed. I don't know where to turn. I feel like I am juggling a million different balls, and no matter what I do, every day, at least one of those balls drops. And then I feel so much guilt. The number one thing I heard, I feel so lonely. And that was when I knew what would become my personal mission. If I could help even a small fraction of moms in my little corner of the world to not experience that depth of loneliness that I had felt, it would be a life well served. My business partner and I have worked tirelessly for the past 2 years, building a collective of resources and experts, a supportive village for moms. It is what we feel every mom deserves to have through every stage of their motherhood journey. And it is what we both feel was missing from our own motherhood experience. The truth, postpartum anxiety has given me a lot, but it kept me from that immediate bond with my baby. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved that child. I loved her from the moment I found out of her existence. But I struggled to bond with her in the way I had read about, in the way I had coveted for so long. But this story is about the fall. And how I fell in love with my baby girl is a much better story. It does not rely on some hormone pumping through my body. It is a love that is raw and authentic and real. It is built on shared experiences and moments spent together day after day. It is watching her grow and seeing her develop into the person she will be, watching her persevere and overcome over challenges, seeing the magic of the world through her eyes, or hearing her tell one of her incredibly long-winded stories. Or how she'll say, I was just joking, after she sees that she might have said something that was a little bit hurtful to you. How she'll tiptoe into our room every morning at 2 a.m. and then wait, her face erupting into a huge smile when she sees me open my arms up to her. How she'll plan a birthday party every single morning. And let me tell you, every paper cup and paper plate we own is a part of that party setup. And every stuffed animal in the house is invited to that shindig. And it does not matter how early we need to be out of the house that day. How she carries around this little trinket I got for her from a gas station. And every night she places it right over her heart and covers it with her two little hands and says, so you're with me all night, Mommy. I can't tell you exactly how or when this gradual opening of my heart towards hers happened. But what I can tell you is one day I woke up and I looked at that little girl and I felt as if my heart had exploded out of my chest and was walking around out there in the great big world on two little legs, wearing a blue frozen Elsa dress. Some moms will fall in love with their baby as soon as they are placed in her arms. Some won't. Some will need time to get to know the amazing human they created. Some will need help navigating their own personal challenges and mental health struggles. That's okay, because the relationship we build with our child, one brick at a time, that holds far more power. Thank you.